So today we're going to be doing a water change on this tank right here. Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So today I wanted to do a little bit of a different video to what I've been doing, and I wanted to do a sort of a practical demonstration, if you like, of doing a water change. So I'm going to be changing the water on this Tetra tank here. I do this on a weekly basis, so I know there's a lot of videos going around at the moment around water changes, and definitely in the hobby it splits into two categories. There's those who don't do water changes, especially in planted tanks, and there's those that agree that water changes are something that you need to do in your aquariums. I come from the aspect of you should be doing water changes in your aquarium, whether it's planted, whether it's not planted, because it's always beneficial. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the video. But for now, I want to get started on doing a change on this tank here. We want to just turn off any filters, heaters, that sort of thing. So I'm going to unplug these. So in this tank I've got this fluval surface skimmer just here. So what I normally do is I'll take that out now and I'll give that a bit of a clean towards the end of the video before we put it back. So I'll just get that removed. The surface skimmer is not an essential piece of equipment really. I like to use it just to keep the surface of the water nice and clean. You probably find that over time you get a build-up of biofilm and things like that. It's perfectly normal, and also you get a lot of build-up of oils from the food you might feed and things like that. So I just find a surface skimmer is a good way of keeping the surface nice and clean. So yeah, we're just going to give the glass a clean, so I just use one of these NT Lab sponges. I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in those. Or you could just use a regular, dish cleaning sponge. Really doesn't make any difference, to be honest. So what I like to do is I like to just first go around where the water sort of level is, and then just going up and down, I just want to clean some of that algae that might be on the glass. And to be honest, there probably isn't going to be much on this. I do a weekly water change on this, so it's quite clean. And we just work our way around. What I like to do is I like to sort of come down and have a look where the light hits the glass from underneath, and you can see if you've missed anywhere. So I can see that I've missed some down the bottom here. So I'll go back over that. And a little tip here as well is if you want to see whether how clean the glass is, if you have a look through the side of the aquarium with the reflections, you'll be able to see if you've missed anywhere. So I can see that I've missed a piece here. There's still some algae on the glass there. If I look from the front, you can't actually see it, but from here I can see it and it's right there. So I'll give that a bit more of a clean. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's up to you really at the end of the day. But I always do this first, and that way any sort of particles, algae particles or anything like that are floating around will be picked up when we siphon it. So have another look in. It's still got some there. Let's try again. There we go. So that looks good. And again, if we look from the front, we look at the side glass, I can see that it's clean. And we just move on to this side as well. And we'll just do the same thing. We'll move our way around. And what you should find is that there isn't too much of a build-up. If you're doing this on a regular basis, such as once a week or once every 2 weeks, it shouldn't need much of a scrape of the algae. If you're finding that the algae on the glass is really stubborn and really built up, then it's an indication that the balance is a little bit off in your tank. Maybe there's too much light, too much nutrients, that sort of thing. But this is quite clean because I do keep on top of the maintenance on this tank. Okay, so at this point what I would do is I would grab my bucket and just a siphon, just a tube should I say. This is just a regular pipe. I'm not going to be using a Python or any fancy sort of water change system here. This is just going to be old school with the bucket. I don't need to change that much water, so for this, a bucket is going to be absolutely fine. So what we want to do is you want to take one end of the tube, place it in the tank, and on the other end, if you hold it upright like this, you won't get a mouthful of aquarium water. And we just need to give this a little gentle suck. And there we go. And that's how you start the siphon. Just be careful as you go that you don't suck up any fish. I'm just going to remove about 12 litres, which is what one of these buckets is. Which is a 100 litre tank, so 12 litres, so what, about 10%? Just over 10%. Okay. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do, before I start filling it up with fresh water from the tap, I just want to add a couple of products to the tank. So the first one is dechlorinator. So at the moment I'm using NT Labs Optimus. Another good one would be Seachem Prime. Now, what I like to do with this, just to make it go a little bit further and just to make it easier to do the water change, is you can dose this directly to the tank rather than dosing it to the bucket of water. If you're going to do that, just make sure you dose the full tank volume, as it says on the bottle. So this one says 5 ml per 200 litres of new water. Well, this tank is 100 litres, so we're going to go for half a cap of this, which would cover us for that. So always give it a good shake. Now this starts working immediately and carries on working generally from anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. The next one I want to add is beneficial bacteria. This is Satis. So again, you don't always need to add this, but what you need to remember is that beneficial bacteria in your aquarium is growing on all of the surfaces of your aquarium. So it's on the glass, it's on the plants, it's in the filter media, it's in the gravel, it's in the substrate, it's everywhere. The only place it isn't, and this is a common myth, is free floating in the water. It isn't. It's only on surfaces. And of course, we've just cleaned the glass. So we have disturbed some beneficial bacteria. We haven't removed it as such, but we've certainly disturbed it. So I think it's always a good idea to put this in. Again, this is NT Labs NT Labs Satis. You could use Seachem Stability. There's lots of other ones you could use. And again, you don't have to put it in. If you're just changing this amount of water, 10%, you probably don't need to, but I'm just going to add it in anyway. So we're going to just go for a cap full of this. So we'll give it a good shake again. And the last one I want to add is to make sure we get really good plant growth and carry on getting good plant growth. I'm just going to add some plant fertilizer. So I'm using the Easy Life Pro Phyto. So for this one, it says 10 ml per 100 litres. And on the measuring cap, 10 ml is about a quarter of a cap. So again, we're going to give it a really good shake. And that is going to be good for a week. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is we need to fill that tank back up to the level it was at with fresh water from the tap. So we'll go and do that now. When you're doing this, if you've got a mixer tap like this, which has got hot and cold, you just want to run it and try and get it to the same temperature roughly as what the tank water is. So my tank is at 25 degrees, and I know that based on the feel of that water, roughly what it feels like. So I'm just going to run this on the mixer. You don't have to be overly regimented with this, because we're only replacing 10% of the water. You could happily go 2 or 3 degrees either side of your ideal temperature for your tank, and that's going to be fine. It's not going to shock your fish. If you don't want to trust doing it with your hand, if you've got a temperature gun like this one, you could use that. You could dip a thermometer in it as well. That's a bit warm now. Let's put a bit more cold in. We'll just test this now. That's showing at 23.7 degrees. I don't know if you could see that. So that is absolutely fine. That's, you know, within 1.5 degrees of what it should be. So we're just going to fill that bucket up now. It's actually come up now. It's at 25 degrees now. So we could just ease off a little bit on the warm, make sure it doesn't keep getting too warm. But that's probably going to be about ideal. Okay, so we can take our fresh water, which is directly from the tap, and we can just pour this straight into the tank. Remember, we have already dechlorinated it, and we've dechlorinated it based on the full tank volume. And all that's left to do is to just plug the pumps back in and the heater. And that's it. That is your water change done. And what did that take? 10 minutes? Probably less than 10 minutes. I mean, obviously for you guys it won't be. And then I just like to go along and just give the edge a nice little tidy up. Get any sort of hard watermarks off there. And just use a soft cloth for that. You can use paper towel. So just use a soft cloth. And that's going to be good for another week. Why did I want to do this video? So I wanted to do this video because there's a lot of information going around on the internet at the moment, especially on YouTube, about water changes, specifically in planted tanks, and how if you set up the substrate in a certain way, you never need to do them again. Now, the problem is that a lot of scaremongering is being done with this, such as saying that your fish are going to die if you don't do this, and things like that. Now, the problem is that water changes are a fundamental part of fish keeping, and the idea of changing the water in the aquarium is something which, when you think about nature, water is being moved around all the time. If you even understand the water cycle, you'd understand that when water evaporates, and then obviously it becomes clouds, and then it rains, that's like a form of a water change. But for some reason, there's a lot of people saying that we shouldn't sort of replicate that within your aquarium. So if the water evaporates, yeah, of course you could top it up. But a lot of people are saying, well, you shouldn't do that. You should use a lid and then never let it evaporate and never do a water change. And that to me is absolutely crazy, because I've always done water changes on my aquariums. I do, you know, anywhere from sort of 10, 20, up to 50% a week on every one of my tanks. And I do that because ultimately the fish show me that it makes a difference. The tank shows me that it makes a difference. I can see that it's cleaner. I can see it's fresher. I see I get better plant growth. And what you have to understand is that when we change water, or when we add fresh water from the tap, or from whatever source you're using, you're actually replacing essential minerals which your fish need to thrive, your plants need to thrive, and you're also removing some waste as well from the tank. Now, in a planted tank, your nitrates are going to be very low, but nitrates is not the only form of waste that's floating around in that water. There are other compounds within that water which is considered waste, and you want to dilute that. So you always want to try and make sure that that water is as clean and as fresh as possible for your fish. Granted, in a closed system, that can be difficult. But to have this idea that you never do a water change ever again is really crazy to me. So I wanted to do this video to show that a couple of things really. One, it can be as quick as that. I mean, obviously the video will be much shorter, but that took less than 10 minutes to change 10% of the water. And that's good to go for another week. So that's one element of it. The other element is that there's a lot of people that think that it harms your fish. Those fish don't look like they're harmed. They're doing absolutely fine. They're behaving in the same way that they were before I did the water change. And these fish have come from fish farms, they've come from fish shops, and I can guarantee you that those places will do water changes to keep that water as clean as they possibly can, because it does make a difference to the health of the fish. Now, of course, if you're looking at changing, you know, 80, 90% of the water, you could cause big shifts in pH and things like that. But you can build your fish up to that. And there's plenty of people, and you will see it all over YouTube, where they actually do water changes of this amount. And that's fine. You know, you can build your fish up to that so they can tolerate it. And again, it's still going to be beneficial. I don't keep them, I've never kept them, but there's a big amount of evidence, or a large amount of evidence, about discus and how doing that is vital in discus tanks, that you want to keep that water extremely clean to see those discus thrive. Like I said, I'm not an expert on that all, but I've seen plenty of videos and I can definitely see which side of that argument that I stand on, that water changes are important, your fish always benefit from them, and you should absolutely do them. As I say, I know they can be scary, but there's a lot of things that you don't need to worry about. You don't need to worry about the temperature unless it's really way off. You know, it can be within 1 or 2 degrees. You can add your dechlorinators and things like that directly to the tank before you fill up from the tap. On this occasion, I've just used a bucket and a regular hose. If you want to get more technical and you want to use, you know, pythons and pumps and things like that to remove the water quicker and add it quicker, by all means you can do that. I just wanted to show you that in the most basic form, it is a simple process to do, and I can immediately see the benefits of doing this. So anyway, thank you for watching the video. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, leave me a comment, all that kind of stuff, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.